Good afternoon, good evening. We've talked about the need to give the rural people title deeds to even the few acres on which their mud hut is built. This makes sense. It's not rocket science. And yet, both the white colonial regime and now the post-independent black regime have stubbornly refused to give the rural people title deeds. Here is Dr. Kudakwashe Tagwirei talking on that very subject.
When we
My apologies, we seem to have some technical problems there. My apologies. But what he's basically saying is something that we have all known. That if you give the local people title deeds to the land, they will have the confidence to develop it. The bank will have the confidence to give them financial assistance because they can use that land as collateral. And yet, both the white regime of Ian Smith and the Zanu PF regime of Robert Mugabe and now Emerson Mnangagwa have stubbornly refused to give blacks title deeds. Smith was approached by the late economist and banker John Robertson with that plan: give the rural blacks title deeds to the land and you economically empower them and boosting the nation's economic performance. Ian Smith understood that, of course, but he refused it.
I have no land to give. But when the
sorry about that. But he refused to give the land for one reason. He argued that if you economically empower the blacks, the next thing they would want is political empowerment. And that was the one thing that he was not prepared to give up. He believed that if you give the blacks the right to vote, of course, it will be very difficult to maintain the white monopoly on power. And it was for that reason that he would not give title deeds to blacks. After independence, John Robertson gave the same plan to Robert Mugabe, and he refused for the same selfish political reasons. Here is Margaret Dongo speaking on that very issue of why Zanu PF has deliberately kept the black majority, particularly in the rural areas, poor.
They have wrong priorities, especially the current government. How can you go and build an airport which services a few people, and the majority are the elite and the so-called investors? Look at the rural. I made you come to interview me because I wanted you to have the experience of the roads that we are using. If we go today to our hospital there, you feel pity with that's a hospital in a rural area. If we go to our clinic, you feel pity. We have no piped water here. Do you know the reason why the rural people vote for Zanu PF? One, they're intimidated. Two, the policy is that the rural people should remain poor and subservient to the government. They should remain poor, because if they remain poor, they continue singing the song for their master. This is why these people have been impoverished. It's for a reason. Because at the moment, if you economic empower these people, they'll go out of hand. Zanu PF will never have control over them.
It has been at the heart of our failed political system, where those in power feel they have to keep the majority, particularly in the rural areas, no more than medieval serfs, impoverished and always fearful of the landlords, the Zanu PF ruling elite, and their proxies in the form of the village heads, the chiefs, the war veterans, the Zanu PF militia, all backed by the state institutions like the police, the judiciary, etc. Zanu PF will never give title deeds to the rural people because they want them to remain poor and subservient to the regime. The regime considers the rural areas as its political strongholds, precisely because of that. During elections, if a villager gets a visitor, he has got to report him to the party structure that he has got a visitor. Because during elections, rural areas are no-go areas for the opposition. Even donors have been told that if they want to distribute their assistance, they have to do it through the party structures. And some donors have refused to do so, and they've been forced to leave the country. This is the level of control we are talking about here. It is a pity that it's nearly 50 years after independence, and yet millions of our fellow citizens continue to be no more than serfs in the medieval Europe, totally dependent on the regime. As much as Dr. Kudakwashe Tagwirei has Mnangagwa's ear, on many issues, you will find that telling Mnangagwa that he must give the rural people title deeds will be a waste of time. Mnangagwa, when it comes to that subject, is deaf in both ears. Because Mnangagwa and these Zanu PF cronies have tested power, absolute power, these last 46 years. And they know that the party's continued rule depends on making sure that the party does not relinquish its iron grip on the rural people. And giving them title deeds will economically empower them, and an economically empowered rural povo would demand political empowerment. And that is the one thing Zanu PF is not prepared to do. The irony is the whole nation will never really be free as long as millions of our fellow citizens remain serfs by design. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. And we have failed ourselves in that we have failed to put an end to it. If there's one area where we must do something and end it, it is the denying of rural people title deeds to even a few acres on which their mud hut is built. There is absolutely no justification for that other than selfish political reasons.